I was recently back in the US to visit family, and while I was there, I was reminded of the unparalleled dominance of the American large SUV. Everywhere I seemed to look, there was a Tahoe or an Expedition lumbering down the road. And as I watched these behemoths, I couldn't help but think to myself that I'd found the one segment where Chinese upstart brands could not threaten our American car makers. And then I drove the Denza N9, and now I feel less confident about that. Denza, for those of you who are new to the Chinese car game, is a brand from BYD. And I hope I don't have to tell you who BYD is. This is Denza's new flagship SUV, and a ship it is, measuring almost 5.3 meters in length and over 2 meters wide. It's about the same size as a Ford Expedition, but as you'll see throughout the rest of this video, it has about as much technology in one of its rearview mirrors as the Expedition has in its entire body. When it comes to the exterior styling, however, it's not the Expedition that comes to mind, but a Range Rover. The comparisons to that storied British mark are going to be inevitable because of Denza's decision to give this thing a front-end design and overall shape that's flush like the Range Rover, as well as large headlight units just elongated this way and tucked up right against the edge of the hood. Still, it is a handsome design, and it is a reminder that the Denza N9 belongs to a more refined class of SUV. The most unique aspect of this car's exterior styling is certainly the rear end, where you have this sort of power beak formed by the wraparound taillights here. It brings to mind stylistic icons like the Subaru Tribeca. Suffice it to say, I look forward to seeing how they continue to evolve this exterior styling in the future. If you can tear your eyes away from the power beak for a moment, you'll see this small innocuous badge right here that says E3. It's pretty easy to miss, but it signifies why this thing is different than any other large Chinese SUV we've ever reviewed. Because while there are a variety of options available from Chinese car makers in this large SUV category, priced from $60,000 to $75,000 USD, those brands, such as Li Auto with their L9 and Aito with their M9, have dual motor powertrains, whereas this has the E3 tri-motor plug-in hybrid powertrain with a pure electric version coming in the future. It makes 680 kilowatts or 935 horsepower. That's more than twice as much as a Li Auto L9, and enough to rocket this thing to 100 kilometers per hour in less than 4 seconds. All that tech and power means that the N9 is anything but lightweight, coming in at 3.1 tons or 500 to 600 kilograms more than competitors like the Aito M9 and Li Auto L9. As a result, its CLTC range from a 47 kilowatt hour LFP battery pack is 200 kilometers versus the 280 and 225 of these cars. There's no such thing as a free lunch, folks. Getting into the N9 is quite an occasion, and not just because stepping up into it feels like entering a monster truck. Your arrival is greeted with the opening of air conditioning flaps and the rising of speakers from the dashboard. I can't help but wonder, however, how age and potentially malfunctioning motors will affect the enthusiasm of that greeting. Like how a little kid is so excited when their dad comes home from work, but by the time they're a teenager, dad might as well not exist at all. For now, however, the N9 has no teenage angst, and so this entrance ceremony only adds to what is already an impressive interior. That includes a gargantuan 17.3-inch center screen, flanked by twin 13.2-inch screens, which act as your passenger entertainment screen, and your instrument cluster in front of you. You've also got a 26-speaker DVLA sound system with heated, cooled, and massaging leather seats. Between these seats, you have not only dual 50-watt wireless charging pads, but dual refrigerators. That's right, not only do you have one here for the front passengers, you also have a larger one that slides out from the bottom of the center console for rear passengers as well. We also found dual refrigerators on the Z9 and Z9 GT. That's the sedan and wagons from Denza, which I found to be a little bit of overkill. They make more sense on a family SUV like this, but honestly, I probably would have preferred to have more regular storage space here between the front seats. Finally, you've got digital rear view mirrors, which honestly I don't really like. In fact, I hate them, but they are undeniably high-tech and they are optional, not standard equipment. The pre-sale price for the N9 is $62,000 to $76,000 US, and this interior feels every bit as luxurious as you would expect for that price, and then some. In addition to all the features that I already mentioned from the front row, here in the second row we also have heated, cooled, and massaging seats with leg rests and a bunch of adjustability, including side to side. As you can see, that comes in a lot of handy when you're ready to watch the 17.3-inch rear entertainment screen right there. My only complaint is that while this 3.1 meter wheelbase is very generous, these leg rests are writing checks that the N9 simply cannot cash because there's not enough space for you to actually extend your legs out with having your feet run into the bottom of the front row, unless you're willing to adjust that front row far enough forward, in which case it's essentially uninhabitable. That means it's only useful for those rare occasions when you want to sit in the back seat and watch a video. Material quality throughout this cabin is top-notch, even here in the third row, which is heated and has adjustability, not just for rake, as you can see here, and forward and aft. It also has, what I've never seen before in a third row of any vehicle, adjustable seat bottom angle like this. This essentially acts as a form of low back support, allowing you to create the best or most comfortable angle for yourself when sitting in the third row. And when you connect that second row and the third row to create that kind of bed, you can raise up this seat cushion towards your head so that your head doesn't fall down at an angle when you're trying to lay down. It makes it much more comfortable. Between that third row and the looming presence of the power beak is a rear cargo area that can fit 5 20-inch carry-on bags vertically, if of course the seats are adjusted farther forward than this. It also, thanks to the air suspension, has adjustable height, which you can do via the buttons here on the side. And thanks to these same buttons and a bunch of motors that are mounted in each of the third row seats, you can adjust the seats from here, including laying them down completely at the touch of a button. I've really enjoyed Denza's most recent wave of products, including the Z9 sedan and Z9 GT wagon, both of which use this same E3 powertrain and DCIS-A air suspension, so I was very excited to see what they could do with that system underneath of a large SUV like this. First off, no surprise, with almost 1,000 horsepower, this thing is incredibly quick off the line. I personally hit a 100km/h time of 3.8 seconds with myself and an instructor in the vehicle earlier today on a closed course. If and when you get tired of making your passengers uncomfortable through sheer speed, you can rely on the DCIS-A's dual-chamber air suspension to deliver a very comfortable ride, smoothing out all of the potholes and harshness of the surrounding world and delivering a very, very solid feeling experience. One that really does approach the bank vault levels that you get from something like a German large SUV such as the BMW X7 or Mercedes-Benz GLS. Only this thing is much faster. One thing I appreciate even more in the N9 than I did in the Z9 and Z9 GT is the 10 degrees of rear steer. It's hard enough already to maneuver a 5.2 meter sedan or wagon. It's another thing entirely when you're in a big, high, square SUV like this. It genuinely makes driving this car so much easier, not only in tight parking situations, for example, but even in high traffic areas. You feel much more confident maneuvering it between cars. Although Denza is not selling the N9 as a hardcore off-roading SUV, they still want you to know that it's pretty capable off-road thanks to the E3 system as well as the DCIS A suspension, so they brought us to a closed off-road course to see what it can do. Getting back to normal roads, this thing does have enough power to jumpstart the rotation of the Earth, and that's going to get it a lot of headlines, but there's more to it than just that. This is also the first car I've driven that has the latest Celestial Eye system. That is BYD's driver assistance system. That comes in 3 different levels, A, B, and C. If you'd like to learn about the other levels, A and C, be sure to go back and check out our recent video in which friend of the show Chris stepped in my absence. Thank you, Chris, by the way, to go to BYD's press launch event and get to experience the basic system. That would be Celestial Eye C or D-Pilot 100. This is the mid-tier system, D-Pilot 300 or Celestial Eye B. That means it has 1 or 2 LiDAR units in addition to all the cameras and radars that you'll find in the more basic system. My time behind the wheel with the Celestial IB/D-Pilot 300 system today has been limited, so I can only give my first impressions, but they are quite good. One of the things that I noticed in terms of bad habits, if I'm being honest, is the fact that this thing tends to always turn into the far inside lane when taking left-hand turns. That means if there's multiple left-hand turn lanes and say it's in the middle one of 3, it will, once it makes the turn, immediately go over to the very far left lane once it's made the turn, even if that means cutting off other cars. I'm not entirely sure why it does that. It must obviously have to do something with the program, but I would hope that they would change that in the future. Other than that, I honestly can't find that many things to complain about. Braking habits are generally quite good. There's been a couple of circumstances in which it was a little bit heavier on the brakes than I felt necessary, but I did feel as though the system was always aware of its surroundings and it never made me scared that it was going to run into anything, which I mean, that's the baseline of a system. If it's going to do that, then you're never going to use it. This, I think, doesn't quite get to the same level as the latest Huawei or Xpeng systems, but it is to a point now where I think I might actually use it in my daily life were I to have an N9. A few years ago, the Li Auto L9 came along and revolutionized the game when it came to Chinese large SUVs. Then, last year, the Ito M9 appeared to raise the bar even higher when it came to things like interior smart features. And today, we have the era of the N9, a time in which Chinese large SUVs not only have smart features and massive space, they can also drive quite well.